Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In this video, we will meet Aneke Dornbusch. Aneke is postdoc at the Protestant Theological Faculty of Bonn, and she attended our annual REFORC conference earlier this year in Leuven, where she gave a paper on the Radical Ludwig Hätzer, and Aneke has won the REFORC Paper Award of this year. Congratulations on this award winning, Aneke.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a bit more about your paper? Where was it about?
So, as you said, my paper is about the so-called Radical Ludwig Hätzer, who was an interesting figure during the early years of the Reformation. And he was executed in Constance at the Lake Bodensee in 1529. And in my paper, I wanted to find out how he was defamed and persecuted by his contemporaries, basically who made it possible that in the end he was killed. And I did this by looking at all the letters we have from this period in which Hätzer is mentioned. And I analyzed these letters with the help of social network analyses.
It's an interesting tool that you mentioned now. Social network analysis. Can you tell us what it is and why you choose for this tool?
Social network analysis originally is a method from the social sciences. And with this method, you can analyze relationships between people, but also, for example, between states, institutions. And what you do is that you put all the data from the different relationships into a database. Then you can visualize a network, and then you can also run some analytical functions to find out who, for example, who's the most central person in the network, or who plays an important role in the network in connecting different parts of the network. And this method has then for some time been used in historic research as well. And we found that it's especially helpful in analyzing letters, because with letters you always have a sender and a recipient, so a connection between two people. And I also deal with letters in my research, and so I thought, well, I might give it a try. And the paper for me really was an experiment, because the biggest difference between a classical social network analysis and my paper is that my data set is very small. Got about 50 letters, and usually in social network analysis we have big data, we have thousands of relationships. So that's why my paper is also called an attempt, because I wanted to find out if social network analysis works with such a small sample and what the limitations of the method might be.
Yeah, you say it is a test, it is an attempt, and when you look back, when you finish your paper, did it bring you new insights, new research results that you hoped for?
Yeah, definitely. On the one hand, the visualization alone that I created from the letters was very interesting, because at the first glance, I saw that I actually have two networks. I have one network which is persons, theologians mostly, and they are writing to one another about Hätzer and saying, well, this guy, he's perhaps a bit difficult, we have to do something about him. And then I have a second network where there are city councils, city magistrates who are writing to each other saying, well, do you know anything about this guy? We have him here in prison and need some charges. And this is something I also like to explore further in my research, how this communication during the early Reformation works on these two levels, theologians, individuals, and cities. And I want to find out whether there are connections or whether there are really two levels. But I also ran some tests on my network to find out who might have a central position. And there I realized that you really have to be careful with such a small data set, because the outcomes of these mathematical analyses are not very reliable, but still they might just give some hints. For example, I found that the Reformers in Constance, where we have two brothers, the Blarer brothers, who are working in Constance. They seem to have an important role because they connect more Western cities, like Strasbourg, for example, with more Eastern cities, like Augsburg. And this is also something I want to explore more, if the people in Constance, the Reformers in Constance, really have this central role. So I gained some new ideas from the social network analysis, and now I want to get back to the sources and look whether I can find more hints.
Well, to me, it sounds very fascinating that you can use new tools for your research and get things out of it. Now, maybe more people are considering using this tool. What would you recommend them?
Yeah, I definitely recommend looking into the digital humanities, looking into the different methods, programs there are, because I think we are now at a point where there are a lot of programs available, open source programs, free to use. I used the open source program Vizone, which is, I think, very easy to use if you take perhaps some hours, some days just to get used to it. I think the reason why a lot of people don't attempt things like social network analysis is because they think that you have to have specific knowledge. You need to know how to code, for example. But I don't know how to code. And I still could use these programs. And I think it's not only helpful to get new ideas for your research, but also for science communication, because a nice visualization is much more accessible than text, I think, to communicate your science.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I fully agree with that. And it's always nice to present your results to a wider audience. And when you can make use of this visualization, it looks great. And it's also a relief to know from you that it is doable working with this. So it's good to know. The proceedings of our conference will be published later. So anyone interested in the paper that Aneke Dornbusch wrote can read it in one of the REFORC proceedings that will hopefully be published next year. We have to wait for that. But until that time, we have the video. Thank you very much for this interview, Aneke. And also on behalf of REFORC, I wish you good luck with all the research you're planning to do.
Thank you again for the award and for the opportunity to talk more about my research.
It was a pleasure. Bye, Aneke.
Bye.